She's an expat with a huge heart who started an organization delivering unwanted items to those who could use it. It's an organization that saves lives and doles out support and love to those who need it the most. Join us on Up Close to meet Leslie Simpson, founder of Roundabout. Hello and welcome to Up Close. Today I'm with Leslie Simpson, a woman with simply an enormous heart who has started a social enterprise in Beijing called Roundabout. Leslie, thank you for being here on Up Close.
Thank you very much for inviting me here today. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about Roundabout. I know it's an organization whose mission is to bring together those who want to give, and these people, these donors, either give in the form of a donation of used items or perhaps some money, and bringing them together with those who need it the most. Tell me, I'd like to start first with some stories about the people that you've helped as a result of Roundabout existing.
It's quite difficult to pick out one or two different stories because with the help of our community we've been able to help hundreds of different people. But one case that does stand out a lot is a little boy called Yang Bing who had a bone marrow transplant in December. Yang Bing comes from a really poor village in Gansu, and although he'd managed to come to Beijing for chemotherapy treatment, the supporters from his village in Gansu who had been paying for all of that could not reach that 300,000 RMB that was needed for a bone marrow transplant. So they came to us and said, would we be able to help? We had 3 days to find the 300,000 RMB.
Only 3 days?
Only 3 days. Because if we didn't have that money in his account in 3 days, he would have another dose of chemotherapy. And each time he had chemotherapy, it lessened his chances of the bone marrow transplant being successful. So it was just before Christmas. And for the first time ever, we actually went out there and asked for money. We normally found other ways connecting with organizations or selling goods. But we didn't have a choice. We had 3 days.
So what did you do? You went out, you sent emails, you made phone calls.
And made phone calls.
And this is largely to the foreign community, the international community.
Yes, but we saw something so amazing this time. One of the big things that we wish to do is to show people, local people, that you don't need to be rich to be able to give to charity. Every little thing adds up. And this time, not only were the local expat community giving, but a driver would drop off money from his tai-tai and put in his own donation at the same time. Locals were buying things in our store and saying, keep the change. And that had never, ever happened before. And so that little boy, he's only 5 years old, he just made such a huge difference here in our local community. It was just amazing.
So you were able to raise that 300,000
We raised almost 1 million in 6 days.
1 million in 6 days for the
That's
community.
Right.
And how is he now?
He is doing really, really well. He's still here in Beijing because he needs to visit the hospital twice a week. His father is actually now working at Roundabout, which is fantastic. He first came and said he wanted to just come and help in order to say thank you, his way of paying us back. And I said, no, you can't do that because the thanks is that you have loved your son and you've stood by him. Nobody wants any more than that.
So you don't want somebody to pay you back in a different way?
Absolutely not. No, the fact that you've done this for your child, the father was the bone marrow donor, and all the things that this family have been through, the suffering that they've all been through in order to help their son, that's thanks enough that they love their son so much.
So how did Yang Bing's parents find you? How did they find Roundabout?
As I said, they come from a very poor village. Some people from that village had, with the help of others in the village, been able to go on and have an education and leave. There is now a support group from that village right here in Beijing, and they had been helping the family. A member of that support group is connected to a school that we work with a lot, and they heard about us. They were really trying to do it on their own, but they just knew that they weren't going to be able to do it, so that's when they approached us.
Right.
And now all of these people from the support group in Gansu also come and volunteer. And they all totally understand what we're trying to do because they have been so deeply involved themselves.
And this is just one example of the many, many children that you help through Roundabout. I know currently you are raising funds for another young child who needs a bone marrow transplant.
Yes, we are. His name is Song Sahan. He's 7 years old. And for 3 years, he was in hospital he had chemotherapy, but they didn't try to do the bone marrow transplant because they knew that his family could not raise that amount of money that was needed. So we said, how about you try going to the same hospital as Yang Bing was in? But unfortunately, at that hospital, they said there wasn't much they could do either. So the mom said to us, I've heard of a Taiwanese doctor in a hospital just on the outskirts of Beijing. It's only a really slim chance. What do you think? And so there's no choice. If it was my child, no matter how slim the chance, I would take that. And so Song Sahan does not deserve any less than that. And so we just said, you've got to go for it. So he was admitted to that hospital a few days ago, and the doctor's saying it's not as bad as we first thought. There is hope. And so in 10 days' time, we have to deposit 500,000 renminbi, but we're well on our way to doing that. Ultimately, like Yang Bing, it will cost almost $1 million by the time that we finish with this aftercare, and to make sure that they go home to a really good hygienic environment so they don't catch any germs, etc.
Right, because the immune system is suppressed.
So we are still urging people to keep giving to help Song Jahan.
So this was all done, these children that are being helped, it's done through donations of gently used or used items that people no longer need. They send these items to you, and what happens then?
The items come into us, and we hold the needs list for 48 humanitarian groups in Beijing, and many more all over China. So we look at the needs lists, and we take out the items that they have asked us for: microwaves, baby beds, kitchen equipment, whatever they need at that moment. And we get that out to them. Then we look at what people further afield, like in earthquake zones, might need, mudslide zones, and we take out the things like the clothing and the warm blankets, and we pack that up and send them to them. The other items that are not needed, like decorative items for the home, vases, paintings, jewellery, we sell those in our store, and we use that money to help people in need.
These are all such wonderful stories. It's time for a break now, and when we come back, we're going to go to the Roundabout charity store to see how it all operates. Stay with us. She's an expat with a huge heart who started an organization delivering unwanted items to those who could use it. It's an organization that saves lives and doles out support and love to those who need it the most. Join us on Up Close to meet Leslie Simpson, founder of Roundabout. And welcome back to Up Close. I'm here with Leslie Simpson. She's the founder of Roundabout, and we're going to take a little preview look, an exclusive look at the Roundabout charity store. So this is it. We're in Shani in Beijing, and we're going to have a little tour. So Leslie, this looks like the board where you communicate to shoppers here what your mission is, what you're trying to do with Roundabout.
That's right. If we recognize there's some new people in this store, we will say, would you like the tour? We call it the tour. And we'll start here off at this board and explain to people what we actually do in here. We do have other plans as well, that we're going to have pictures of all the children that we've helped. We're having big canvases made all to go all the way around the store. So that's a work in progress right now.
Does this attract a lot of people? I mean, I see pictures of children. I see pictures of people in donations being sorted and loaded on trucks. Some of the recipients who got some of this clothing.
That's right. So we tell people that we have a flow chart here. The goods come in, and these are examples of the goods going out all over China, going to Yunnan province, going up to the north of China. This is at the Qinghai earthquake, the Sichuan earthquake, all across China. Heart hospitals, medical foster care homes, schools for migrant children. Wherever there's a need, we go check it out, check that it's a genuine need, and then we send off our trucks.
Roundabout is, of course, a store, and stores get things stolen. It's a fact of the business.
Yes.
So is that a challenge that you have?
It is a challenge that we have, but We address that challenge by trying to do an education program. So if we're aware that somebody is coming in here to take items without paying, then we will introduce them and tell them about what we are doing, show them all around, and say one day you might approach us. Perhaps a family member of yours might need our help. Would that be terrible if we didn't have the money because people have been stealing from us? So we try to educate.
And have you done that yourself? Educated somebody who's maybe came in here thinking about?
Yes, we have. And by the end of the tour, the response usually is, wow, we didn't know that you did so much and all the things that you were doing. Yeah, and hopefully we see a turnaround in the attitude of that person.
Right. All right, let's see the rest of the store. Thank you.
Girls, if you come with us, we can set you to work as well.
Okay, great. So this looks like heaven for any child here.
It is. And I think some people are a little bit baffled that we sell the toys when there are so many children in need, and especially earthquake zones and some really poor schools. But we have to pick and choose what we send out.
So you could get more by selling this
Yes.
and help more than if you just gave the toy.
And sometimes the toys aren't suitable. So
Right.
for example, here we have Junior Scrabble. There would be no point in sending this to Ya'an earthquake zone because the children can't read English.
Sure.
So to make better use of it, we would sell it and then we'd use the money. This is our electronics room. Every single item in here has to be tested to see if it works before we can send it out or before we can sell it. So this is where we
So
really...
you plug everything in, test to see if it works, and
That's right. Some items we can't test, such as ceiling lamps. We have a little sticker we put on it and say we can't test this item. The low price reflects it, and people just take a gamble on whether they want to buy it or not.
Right.
But this is where we rely heavily on teams of volunteers to come in and test all these items for us. As you can see, there is a lot of work in this room.
there's a bit of a there's a big pipeline behind you. This looks like books, the book room.
Yes. Once a month during school term, we hold a book fair within one of the international schools. We try to move around the city, and they are very popular. We even have people who follow us all over the city. One of our book fairs actually took 260,000 renminbi, which went
260,000 renminbi for one book fair.
for one book fair. The books are an average price of 10 renminbi, which...
And most of them are English books.
No, we have all different languages. So behind us we have, this section is all Chinese, foreign languages. We just have about every book in every genre that you could possibly think of.
This is a book aficionado's dream, being back here.
And it's so much cheaper than going to your local bookstore and getting a book there, which might cost you over 100 renminbi. You can pick it up here in really good condition for only 10.
For only 10 renminbi. And you know what? I found one that I think might suit me even today. Don't sweat the small stuff for women.
She's an expat with a huge heart who started an organization delivering unwanted items to those who could use it. It's an organization that saves lives and doles out support and love to those who need it the most. Join us on Up Close to meet Leslie Simpson, founder of Roundabout.
And welcome back to Up Close, where I'm speaking with Leslie Simpson, founder of Roundabout. Leslie, how did you have the idea to start this organization?
Initially, I came to China to help children in need. And I volunteered almost full-time at a medical foster care home.
So you came entirely with this mission to help children in need?
Yes, I did. My husband applied for the job here so that I could do what I wanted to do. I told you before.
So you
he's
were the
wonderful.
driver, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he sounds wonderful.
He is. He's wonderful. So at the medical care home, people would bring us their bags of donations. And the IEs would take it and scuttle away and hide it in a room somewhere. And at one point, it took 8 volunteers and staff 2 days to sort through all these bags. We found items that we couldn't use, such as clothes for teenagers, and we didn't have any teenagers. We found items that we could have been using if only we had known they were there.
Right, but they've been
But
put in
they've
a
been
room,
put in a
and
room and they're at the
about
bottom
them.
of the bag and no time to actually sort them. And we've had to throw away so much garbage, like one shoe, the top half of a humidifier, a shape sorter with no shapes, things that anyone would classify as being useless. I thought, this is such a drain on the resources. These are 2 days that 8 people did not spend with the children. So I phoned a few of the other charities that I knew, and I said, if I opened a central donation point that did all that work for you, would you be interested? And it was an overwhelming yes. So I encouraged them to empty their storerooms, and they all had them, put it in the pot, we'll sort it for you, and then you just ask us for what you want, or you just come in and take what you need.
You make it sound like it was so easy, but here you are. You have all of these organizations with all of these goods. You're still getting an inflow of goods, whether it's, I'm guessing people send you, like you said, everything from wonderful toddler beds to, and brand new toddler beds to maybe even somebody's trash or paper.
Yes.
Tell me about the challenges that you're facing in actually starting up this organization.
Well, initially I didn't really know how it was going to work, and I didn't actually know if I would be allowed to do this. But I just took a great big leap and decided to go for it.
Leap of faith.
Yes, and it's just grown and grown, and word about us has spread, not just through the donors, but also to the people in need as well. One charity has told another charity, has told another charity, and they've all just mushroomed until we are actually supporting 48 of them right here.
When you first started, were there people who were critical of what you were doing? What were they saying?
Yes, when we initially started, I think it was quite hard on the IEs and drivers. Perhaps in the past, when people were moving, they would give the things to the IEs or the drivers. And now suddenly we came along as a little bit of competition to that. But I know that some people still give to both. Personally, I do. I still give things to my IE. But I did actually have some IEs spit at me. I did have drivers come along and empty the boxes right on our doorstep and sort of like, And we had drivers who weren't willing to hand over some of the things, unfortunately.
Because they thought you were profiting from this.
Yes, they did. A lot of local people could not believe that I would work all day for 6 days for no money. I must be making a fortune. They just wouldn't believe that I would do this. And the proof of that was when a local man from the village opened his own store with the same signage as we have, that we pass things on, etc. But within a month he had to close because nobody gave him anything. And we see, it's not as easy as that. This is not what it's about. It's not about making money for yourself.
And I have to say, you know, where does this come from? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people who still will say, when they meet you, they understand that you have this tremendous love for, and you want to give. And that's what your life's goal is about. You want to give. But where does this love, where does this giving, where does this all come from?
I think it's a combination, actually. I didn't have an easy childhood. I grew up in a one-parent family. Money was always tight. I was the child who sat in the classroom while all the rest of the children went on a day trip because my mum couldn't afford to pay the bus fare. And I just didn't want any other child to be able to feel that way, the way that I felt. And also in the 80s, I read a book by a wonderful lady in Vietnam, from Ireland, called Christina Noble, who had a dream that she would go to Vietnam and help street children. And when I read her book, it was like a light bulb. I just knew that this is what I wanted to do with my life too.
Does it ever become overwhelming for you? You know, there are so many people that can be helped.
Yes.
Hundreds, thousands, millions of children, of adults that could benefit from Roundabout. Is that overwhelming? You can't help them all.
No. Yes, that is overwhelming. And yes, I've cried many, many tears about that. I remember one time where I didn't even know the child involved. It was another friend had whipped up a little boy from an orphanage and took him to the hospital and phoned round and said, would we all help to pay the bill? And we went, yes, of course we will. And the little boy sadly didn't make it. And that was a direct result of poverty. Had the people had the money sooner, he could have been in hospital sooner. And I really, really cried for that little boy. My husband said, I don't get it. You didn't even know him. He said, but I'm crying for all the children before him and all the children after him that will also die because of poverty. Not just here in China, but in the world. Even in my country, there are children who die of malnutrition.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have been recognized in your country.
I have.
For all of your work. What you do, you're like a saint. And you've been recognized. You just this year received an Officer of the Order of the British Empire by the Queen herself.
Yes.
I'm sure for somebody who's of Scottish descent, this must have been a very big honor for you. What was it like to meet the Queen?
Oh, I just smiled all day. It was just something I didn't even dream about. When I started this, I didn't even think that such a thing would happen. It was not a goal or an ambition, or it wasn't even on my register. I do it because I want to help people. And I live a fortunate life, and so I have the ability to help people, and I think everybody who is in that position should, and the world would be a better place. But to get back to the Queen, it was just every single person in Buckingham Palace made you feel special, and so I just felt like a princess for a day. It was a huge honor.
Butterflies in your stomach?
Actually, no. I just enjoyed the whole day. I just smiled from start to finish.
Was the palace what you expected? Was the Queen what you expected?
Yes.
Everything and more, right?
Everything and more. The Queen is just amazing. She is somebody I think most people in the UK look up to. I mean, she's 87 years old now, and how she has served her country is just fantastic. So it was a huge honour to be able to meet this absolutely amazing woman that I've always had up there on a pedestal.
Right. I know it's a dream of many British people to be able to be
Yes.
and actually meet the Queen. That is a tremendous honor. This year, there's been a lot of talk. You know, you must have heard it. You've been a resident of China, at Beijing, for a long time. And this year, the new president, Xi, has talked a lot about this Chinese dream. You've been in China for a number of years now. You started Roundabout in 2008. What is your dream for your Chinese dream?
I realise that in China, we're a little bit behind other countries. I mean, if you think back to the UK in the 1900s, we were sending children up chimneys. So I would just love to be able to see China catch up, and so that there is more of an equality. There will never be a full equality. There isn't that in America or the UK or in other countries in Europe. But I would love, my dream is that children will no longer die because of poverty. That parents will go to the hospital and their children will have the surgeries they need, and that they won't be turned away because of poverty. That's my dream. That's my dream.
When you first came to China, you had a family, you had your husband, and you also had three grown sons then.
Yes, 2 of them came to China with us, and they did their final years at school here. And when we moved, the eldest son went straight to university in the UK.
And you have an adopted daughter, Emma.
Yes.
And she was a result of your Roundabout activities as well?
Actually, she was a result of knowing someone, a fellow volunteer at the medical foster care home where I first volunteered. And I had written an email inviting people to my home to do this craft session, and another volunteer who I'd never met, she replied saying, I would love to, but we're getting ready to move and we're desperately trying to find a foster care home for this little girl we're looking after. So I wrote back, we love children, how can we help? And before we know it, she was part of our family.
How old was she then?
She was 9 months old. She first came as a foster child, and we knew that as British expats that there was not an agreement between our countries for adoption, but we fell so in love with this little girl that we just thought, where there's a will, there's a way. I'm not very good at taking no for an answer. And so we wrote to the Prime Minister, Tony Blair it was at the time, we wrote to the Home Office, we just wrote every single week. We have a huge volume of letters that we wrote. And we just kept saying, please, and they kept saying, not possible, please, not possible. And then just one day they said, okay. I think they got fed up of us by then.
Persistence and tenacious nature pays off, doesn't it?
And then on the back of Emma's adoption, there is now agreement. That happened in the summer. By the winter, we worked with them, and there is now agreement. So expats from the UK living here can now adopt.
So this was the first adoption by British expats in
She wasn't actually the first. I think she was the second or the third.
Okay.
But she was the one that they said, okay, we're not having this hassle ever again.
And what about about your sons? What was the response?
They
by your son and your
absolutely
husband?
adore her. The boys just embraced her from the word go. There's no doubt in my mind that sometimes they come over to China on holiday to see her, not mum and dad. And actually this morning my youngest son flew back to the UK and he was so upset at having to leave his little sister.
Aw.
They're so close.
And the ties that you have to China are even stronger. Your older son is married to a Chinese
That's
lady.
right, he is. They got married about almost 3 years ago. And he met her through, he was a chemical engineer student. He chose to do his time out working in industry here at the same company as my husband so that he could spend time with Emma. And he met another lovely chemical engineer in the office. Her name's Chen. And they fell in love and now they're both in the UK.
And do you consider, is China now your home?
Yes, we've been here for almost 9 years, so a long, long time. And China's really in our blood.
And what's the future for Roundabout? It's grown so much in the last 5 years.
It has.
And
Well, just exciting news now. When I started it, I first did a business plan. I have to treat it as a business because if it doesn't make money in the retail area, we cannot do anything else. That's what keeps it going. We've just made an agreement with the National Environment Agency. We will now become part of their projects. And they are travelled all over China and Hong Kong looking at the charity shop model. And they decided they wanted
the
to follow our
specific
model.
type of charity shop model, okay.
And they decided we were the one they wanted to follow. So they're calling their stores Earth Stations. So we're now going to be Roundabout Earth Station 1, and we're training them to set up the other 9.
So there will be 9 Roundabout Earth
They
stations.
will be called Earth Stations. They won't have the
Okay.
roundabout part because we won't be fully in charge of what happens in these ones. So
Right.
we will be.
But they will follow your model of operation and everything successful. Leslie, it's been such a pleasure to have you on Up Close. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure being with you. Thank you.
And thank you to our viewers at home for tuning in. We'll see you next weekend on Up Close. Bye for now.